few days old, but these babies are tiny celebrities. They're Britain's first test tube twins, a dream come true for their parents and for the medical team that helped an ordinary English couple who thought they would never have children. A send-off party at London's Royal Free Hospital, and two little boys sleep blissfully while all around a champagne celebration marks what could be a turning point for thousands of childless couples. If this medical team has its way, by the time Daniel and Christopher Smith are grown up, every couple who could benefit from the so-called test tube technique will have that option. They will benefit from a new simplified method which could offer hope to many couples who want children as badly as Stuart and Josephine Smith once did. There are lots of sayings about motherhood. One of them is it's the most natural thing in the world. And up until the last 10 or 20 years, most women expected that they would have children. But the widespread acceptance of birth control has given them a new freedom of choice. Couples can delay having a family and choose a time when they are both emotionally and financially ready for parenthood. For most couples who want children, there are few problems. They have the benefit of improved maternity care, the availability of vast amounts of information about the rearing of children. They easily produce children and go on to reap the rewards, trials, and tribulations of parenthood. But a new frankness about all aspects of human reproduction has brought the problems of infertile couples out in the open too. An estimated 1 in 10 couples who want to conceive are unable to do so. The British Family Planning Association estimates that there are 1 million couples in the UK alone who would like to bear children but can't. 1978. A major breakthrough for a research team trying to find ways of helping couples who can't conceive naturally. Mr. Patrick Steptoe oversees the culmination of almost 20 years of work as he prepares to deliver by cesarean section the world's first test tube baby. The expectant mother, Mrs. Leslie Brown, was capable of producing healthy eggs and her husband, healthy sperm. But Mrs. Brown's blocked fallopian tubes had made it impossible for natural fertilization to take place. So Steptoe and his colleague, Robert Edwards, did it for the Browns. They removed an egg, fertilized it with Mr. Brown's sperm, and replaced a tiny embryo in Mrs. Brown's womb.
The baby cried at 20 seconds. Past the cranium, normal extent.
The safe delivery of Louise Brown was hailed around the world. A human life launched with the help of careful scientific research. The skill and the timing were finally right, and the result quite perfect. The team spends a moment basking in their success, but according to Dr. Robert Edwards, there was still much to be done.
I think the chance of improving our techniques are considerable.
Why do you say that?
Well, because we are entering a new field where we've had to learn a lot of facts. We learnt a lot in Oldham, and we hope that we'll be able to improve methods, improve results, in the same way as it has been done in other species such as cattle and mice.
Steptoe and Edwards delivered their first test tube babies within Britain's state-run National Health Service. But now they've gone private and operate at Bourne Hall in the serenity of the Cambridgeshire countryside. Some critics say this means only affluent women have access to their expertise, but Edwards says this is not their wish.
If the health service could arrange to pay our costs in our hospital, we would be delighted to introduce national health patients. Indeed, I myself would regard that as a very, very important target to attain and to bring the best possible treatment within range of the national health patient.
The Royal Free Hospital, North London. Once Steptoe and Edwards had achieved their successes, many other hospitals in Britain and around the world started to do their own research to improve and simplify fertilization in vitro. That is, fertilization in a receptacle outside the womb. The goal was to make sure that test tube babies would be a possibility for more than just a privileged few. Professor Ian Kraft of the Royal Free wanted to come up with a method that eventually could be used in general hospitals throughout the UK. In principle, that means examining the complexities of the operation and finding out which parts could safely be left out. He and his team have worked long hours for a number of years, but they, like Steptoe and Edwards, have finally been rewarded.
And this is the baby doctor on the other side, there you see.
April 29th, 1982.
So they will go,
a bustling delivery room at the Royal Free. 6 weeks earlier than expected, but nevertheless, Professor Kraft and his team reporting that everything is fine for a safe delivery of Britain's first test tube twins. Josephine and Stuart Smith are a young couple in their early 30s. They live in Stockport, Cheshire. 4 years ago, they decided they wanted to start a family, but problems soon emerged. Jo suffered an ectopic pregnancy. That means fertilization and implantation occurred in a fallopian tube instead of in the womb as it should. Jo ended up losing both the baby and the fallopian tube. And by a fluke of nature, it was discovered that the fallopian tube she lost was the only one she had. So the unhappy prognosis was that it was very unlikely that Jo and Stuart would ever have children. But Professor Kraft and his team offered them a last chance, and it worked. The mood in the delivery room is a mixture of excited expectation and calm. There's even time to change some specially chosen music. Jo's labor was induced because her amniotic sac broke early. A drip in her arm helps regulate her labor. The Royal Free team used a method similar to Steptoe and Edwards to achieve Jo and Stuart Smith's pregnancy. 3 eggs were removed from Jo's ovary and then fertilized with Stuart's sperm. Steptoe and Edwards wait until a fertilized egg is an embryo consisting of between 8 and 16 cells. But the 3 embryos inserted into Jo's womb comprised only 2 cells each. All 3 embryos survived for a short period, making the world's first test tube triplets a possibility. But one did not make it through the early stages of pregnancy. The other 2 grew into healthy fetuses, and Jo had an uncomplicated, normal pregnancy. Both she and the doctor wanted a natural delivery, too.
I'll sit you forward a minute. All is well then, don't worry about that. We just have learned this first. In a moment, then you lean forward. Put your hands down there. There we are. This is one for you. All your arms, up you down. Isn't that lovely?
Daniel Smith rests for a few moments on his mother's stomach.
What time is that baby born?
Stuart Smith stands by Jo and their tiny son. But the job is only half done. Daniel is taken to a specially prepared area to make various routine checks. The weighing in reveals that Daniel is a minute 4 pounds 1 ounce. Wrapped in aluminum foil to retain vital body heat, young Daniel reveals a healthy pair of lungs.
Great. Isn't that nice? What time is that one? 11:51.
Christopher was born 10 minutes after his brother. He weighed 1 pound and 1 ounce more and is as normal and healthy as his twin. Ablutions are now performed on the younger twin. He is checked and weighed and admired. After years of anguish, months of hope, Joe and Stuart pose with their babies for a first family portrait.
I'll get some more.
Get your head on first. Can you put your arm under the head? Or just this way? This way, okay.
A tired but contented Professor Kraft takes a breather. The babies are resting and Joe and Stuart Smith take time out to express their feelings.
I'm very grateful to Professor Kraft, you know, and all the work he's done and all this team and everything. Because we couldn't have, you know, gone private, we couldn't have afforded it, you know, so it was our only hope, really, you know, at the time.
Yeah. It's just great, marvellous.
Something that you never thought you'd do.
Well, exactly, yes. You know, so. And to have two. Well, that's just absolutely out of this world.
Early days yet, but are you going to have more?
Don't know.
Don't know yet. You know, loads of other couples, we're fortunate, you know, that haven't had children. I suppose they haven't, you know, because you get a chance, shouldn't you? It's all possible.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
we've just been fortunate that we got two, haven't we?
Yeah.
We asked
Can you
Professor
remember what
Kraft
your
how he felt about the
first
safe
reaction,
delivery
your
of
first
Britain's
feelings
first
last
test
night
tube
when they were both
twins. What were
delivered
his
safe and well?
feelings?
Well, one of relief, I think, that both were actually safe and well, and joy for Mrs. Smith that she's managed to go through a pregnancy successfully.
How many more babies have you got that you will be delivering in this way in the next year?
Well, I can tell you there are 4 more people pregnant, 3 of whom will be delivering here and 1 in Devon. We hope there will be others following shortly.
How simple is the technique becoming?
I think it is getting simplified more and more as time passes. We've actually been putting our effort into that direction, trying, in essence, to see if we can make it easier to run and to administer, and perhaps more appropriate not only for us to use, but perhaps for more widespread use in this country, so to save patients coming from far and wide down to this hospital, so they can get it locally, hopefully.
The key question is the method's availability to women in their own local hospitals and at minimum cost. In the United Kingdom, this means on the national health system. Steptoe and Edwards now charge around $4,000 for treatment at their unit. This includes a 4-day stay, because once an egg is removed and fertilized, it can take several days to reach an 8 to 16 cell stage. The Smith twins began in their mother's womb at the 2-cell stage, but doctors are aiming to reintroduce the fertilized egg even earlier, therefore lowering the time a woman needs to spend in the hospital. All this is good news for couples who find it difficult to conceive. But there are worries about the ethical and moral questions raised by doctors' ability to control the human reproductive process. Sperm, for instance, is already collected and frozen in sperm banks. There are long waiting lists of women who require donor sperm to achieve a pregnancy. But the Steptoe and Edwards team have talked about the possibility of freezing and storing human embryos as well as sperm. In the animal world, the freezing of embryos is already far advanced. This calf may not have anything genetically to do with its mother. Down on the farm, there are a few worries about interference with the reproductive process. Cows are given drugs to induce multiple egg production, and then they are artificially inseminated. Their embryos can then be frozen, stored, and implanted in another animal halfway across the world. The success of freezing embryos has been a great boon to the animal export market. Here we see a surgeon about to flush out developing embryos from the mother's womb.
And through the cervix now.
The operation is carried out under local anesthetic. 7 to 15 embryos can be taken during any one collection because the cows have been specially treated to produce more. Normally, like human beings, they only release one egg at a time.
And then forward again.
5.
And then 6.
6.
7.
7.
7.5. Now press the exit end. Yep, right.
We asked the surgeon what steps would be taken next, and if natural reproduction for cows would someday end altogether.
The natural progression from here, I suppose, is that one could predetermine the sex of the embryos, so that you could ask for 10 heifer cows or 10 bull cows from a particular meeting.
Is there any reason to believe that natural reproduction in cows and heifers and bulls need to take place anymore?
Oh, yes, I think it's got to. This is purely a method for reproducing the very best in a breed, increasing the numbers of genetically superior animals, rather than just ordinary breeding process.
So will human embryos ever be stored like these animal ones, successfully defrosted and then gestated in the normal way? An article in a British science magazine reported that Dr. Edwards was thinking of this, but this has now been denied. Once a cow embryo has been defrosted, it can then be introduced into the uterus of a female for 9 months gestation. The surgeon introduces the embryo through the flank. He will draw the uterus out of the incision, pierce it with a blunt needle. Then the embryo will be pushed through inside a flexible pipette. It works for cattle. But many doctors and scientists are at pains to draw a firm division between what goes on in the animal world and what is possible or desirable for humans. Nevertheless, there are implications for human beings, and the debate has scarcely begun. But as thousands of women line up for help to have a baby, doctors who are actually working in the field have one priority, and that is to help couples with the capability of achieving a pregnancy in vitro to have the opportunity to try it.
And what do you think
We
of
asked
the BMA
Professor Ian
moves
Kraft
to
what he thought of the questions of
come into this
ethics
area
surrounding
and
in
set
vitro
up
treatment and
a
what
list of
implications
ground
these
rules for
questions
doctors
had
to
for a
work in?
couple like the Smiths.
That's a very complex question, I think. Most of us who are involved in this work are concerned about the ethics and the morals of test tube baby, as it's been called. With this particular couple, for example, I think there was no consideration to be even countenanced because it was totally impossible for her to become pregnant in any other way. She had no tubes, she only has one ovary, and I can't see anything unethical in that situation. But there are certain situations where infertility might exist. For example, when a husband is unable to produce sperm and the wife has got irreparably blocked tubes, when donor sperm might be required, and reciprocally there might be some people who require donor eggs. Now these considerations are quite different, and I'm quite happy to discuss those implications with any responsible body who wants to have my opinion, and I'm sure other people will be pleased to give theirs.
Do you think there should be a set of guidelines for people involved in this work?
I think, yes, I think in general terms it perhaps would be wise to have some guidelines for perhaps issues I've spoken to you about, for those simple questions where a given couple have a problem that cannot be sorted out in any other way, and yet the wife and the husband have the ability to achieve a fertilisation if only the sperm could get to the egg. Well, I think that isn't probably necessary.
Professor Kraft has worked closely with his colleagues, particularly in Australia, and exchanged information with them.
fluid,
And their knowledge is growing now on almost a daily basis. This woman, for instance, could have eggs removed in the morning, fertilized with sperm an hour later, and then placed in her womb in the afternoon. A baby produced by the even speedier technique is due to be born in August.
Down this way. Now, it looks as though you might even be an egg in there already.
And Kraft and his team like nothing more than to share their success with anyone who wants to listen.
mass, and you can manipulate the mass by aspirating on a pipette. And I can see the egg inside there. It looks quite a mature egg. And we're very hopeful that that will fertilise. So we'll put it now in the incubator and add sperm 6 hours later.
30 test tube babies have been born in the world to date, 16 in England, 3 sets of twins. In just 4 years, teams of dedicated medical staff and scientists have given thousands of childless couples hope. Just over 2 years ago, Joe and Stuart Smith had an appointment with Professor Kraft, a husband and wife who desperately wanted their own children, to be a family. All new parents deserve a celebration like this one. There are lots of contemporary sayings about children and parents. One is that every child should be a wanted child. Perhaps Christopher and Daniel can someday boast that they have been among the most wanted children of all.
How does it feel now when you look back on it? You weren't ever going to have children, suddenly you've got 2.
It's amazing, absolutely. It's incredible, absolutely incredible, because we didn't expect any children, let alone 2. Such 2 beautiful ones. So, delighted, absolutely.